How do you define high performance?
In the boardroom, bedroom, business, it's whatever avenue that you're seeking pressure from. When you understand that 80 to 85% of your thoughts and therefore reactions are coming from your neuroception of your nervous system, kind of just changes things. If there's still a part of you that knows that you're capable of more, but no matter how much efforting you're putting in, you arrive at the same place, it's not supporting you. You're going to have a sensation in your throat, your chest, your stomach. And what I have noticed that high performers do is they don't run from that. They don't avoid that. They embrace it. They question the story, and then they take the action anyway. If you're noticing that that sensation comes up and the story comes up and you're not even aware that you're believing a story, there's your sign. Or you're aware that there is a story and you're believing it and you're getting stuck and you're self-sabotaging or avoiding, procrastinating, there's your sign.
It's how can we apply these principles? Entrepreneurs, creatives, parents, how can anyone apply these chasing mastery?
We think that purpose is so outside of ourselves, and it's not. It's how much can I take up this moment and how am I being masterful with self and in the moment? That's all it is. Don't let your ego be like, well, I'm not an Olympic athlete. Well, but you are. You're a person on the path of self-actualization, of self-mastery. And only an ego would say this purpose isn't as big as someone else's purpose. Your purpose is you, and is you being fully in this present moment as your full self. And you being that contributes to the whole, something much greater than you. And your ego is not privy to how it will contribute that way. And so there's kind of these small self pressures that you put on yourself that will wake you up eventually. But then there's these bigger pressures that something larger than you is putting on yourself, that if you answer those, that's where you'll actualize your full potential. Hi, I'm Natalie Hummel, expert performance coach. Welcome to Ever Forward Radio.
You said picking the pressure, picking the avenue, picking the area where we're going to put pressure on ourselves so that we can become a high performer in that area. Do you think being a high performer, choosing to become a high performer, we can only do so in areas of our choice, or if we're already experiencing external pressure in an area of our life that we want to become a high performer in? How does it work if we're picking the pressure versus it's being put on us?
Every one of us has something that we're meant to contribute to life, to the whole. And you're going to figure that out if you're awake and you're answering the right questions. And so maybe it's a pressure that you've chosen. For example, I can use myself. I wanted the pressure of being an Olympic athlete. God had other plans. I gave everything I had, my smaller self, my ego, the part of me that wanted love, approval, and validation through being an Olympic athlete, was really fighting for that. And I was choosing that pressure. But then when I opened up and allowed myself to really see where I was meant to contribute and the path I was meant to go down, it doesn't necessarily it feels like a path that was provided for me. And there's pressures within that I'm choosing because I know that I'm meant to contribute in some way. I'm meant to be of service. And so there's kind of these small self pressures that you put on yourself that will wake you up eventually. But then there's these bigger pressures that something larger than you is putting on yourself, that if you answer those, that's where you'll actualize your full potential.
Well said. I like that. I think with really anything in our life that we're trying to overcome or we feel the pressure of, we can immediately take our power back and choose to go about it in our own capacity by just choosing to look at it differently. Is this thing against me or is it for me? It's really just how you look at it.
It's a fundamental question of life. Is this thing against me or is this thing for me? And I think that a lot of us get in victim mindset, and not that we aren't victimized, because some of us are and we go through that, but it's a choice to stay in that victim consciousness and feel like life is against you, your parents are against you, your past, your amount of privilege is all of against you, and it's actually all an opportunity in here for you. But that's a fundamental question that any high performer is going to need to ask themselves. Am I going to see life as this force that is against me, or am I going to see life as friendly and that it's all happening for me? And when you make that choice, maybe back to your original question, when you make that choice that everything here, every obstacle is an opportunity, that's when you become a high performer.
I think that's a wrap. That was great. What a just well-wrapped intro there. So good. Thank you. One could argue that being a high performer means that you're competing in something, that you eventually have to win, right? And you talk about how the difference between winning and losing isn't just skill, it's actually the nervous system's ability to adapt. Walk us through that kind of, is that a different approach to being a high performer? Is that a different track to winning? Is there even such a thing as winning when it comes to the nervous system?
Yeah, you said a lot in that one question, so
sorry, I word vomit sometimes.
I'm gonna process that for a second. But what I took from that, and you can direct me in a different way, but what I took from that is this fundamental question that I think we're all up against, no matter if you are competing to win or you're in the boardroom, is this idea that performance mastery is in opposition of self-mastery. That in order to win, you have to do things outside of yourself that are outside of your integrity, and that you're going to really need to get in this defending, proving, protecting energy if you ever want to get anywhere. And my whole philosophy of life, of sport, of competition is that performance mastery is not in opposition of self-mastery, that actually in order to have true performance mastery, you have to have self-mastery. And self-mastery meaning mastery of your ego, mastering of your emotion, mastering of your nervous system. And when you choose self-mastery to be the vehicle to performance mastery, that's the win. Because you keep asking yourself, who do I need to become in order to elicit my greatness under whatever pressure I'm choosing to be under? And when you can do that, no matter the result, you can look back and say, did I become who I was meant to become, or did I not? And so it begins to be this much more intrinsic measurement of what the path is, instead of these results that largely sometimes can happen when you're in self-mastery, sometimes cannot, sometimes they're lucky. And I think that's kind of where this imposter syndrome starts to happen, because you're doing things outside of your integrity to get a result. Mm-hmm. And then when you get there, it doesn't feel good. You're not fulfilled. And then also you feel like it's a fluke or you don't deserve it. But if you've done your divine curriculum leading to that win, there's no way that you'll feel like an imposter when you got there, because you've become who you needed to become. You took your curriculum on. And from that place, you do feel fulfilled. And there is a sense of, I did my path and I served and I contributed in the way that I was meant to. And also when you said, is there winning in a place of your nervous system? Yes, because when you're operating from this need to prove and perfect and defend, that's from fear and that's from protection. And those are two states in your nervous system that are lower than the highest state of your nervous system, which is safety and connection or love. So basically it's that fundamental question of love or fear. Yeah. And so as athletes, sometimes they can really get into the misunderstanding that actually they do need to operate from fear. They need to act like there's an opposition. There's someone that they need to defend against, prove against. And no matter how much you've won from that state, you have not reached your potential. There is no higher power than love in this world and safety. And so if you can move from a state of protection into a state of connection and compete from that place, it's limitless. Also, I have one more thing to add.
Please go. Yes. Yeah.
The word compete, there's a Latin word that's the root, and I can't say it. It's like competar or something. It's TRE or something like this. But it means to strive together, which means there's no opposition. It means that when someone in their greatness is next to you and they're coming to strive with you together, that's only eliciting more of your greatness. And so there becomes this natural gratitude towards the opponent, which might seem in contradiction to the way we think of competing now. But really, it's this opportunity to compete against someone else's greatness and allow it to elicit in yours and to strive together, which can offer a higher level of play.
Yeah. I'm blanking on what it's called. Is it morphology, like or epistemology? Like we're looking at words. someone's going to correct me in the comments. But we actually, when we look at words and what they really mean in terms of root origin, that I never heard that before. That's incredible. How many of us are living, performing through this lens of I'm competing, even if you actually are a competing professional, however, but to go, no, it actually is, we're striving together. And also, when I think back to any time where I've been striving the most in life, it's because I have someone else doing the same thing in proximity to me. How much more contagious and motivational and inspirational is it when we are doing the damn thing next to somebody else doing their damn thing as well? It's the most infectious thing in the world.
Most infectious thing in the world. And of course, we could find the science to find that, like the mirror neurons and co-regulation and all of these things. But
safety,
connection,
nervous system regulation.
But really, and then that saying, you are the 5 people that you spend your time around. You are, because we're pack animals. We're trying to stay with the pack. So if your pack is slightly ahead of you, that's going to just keep pulling you forward and forward and forward. But if your pack is slightly below you, you're going to keep wanting to match them, to mirror them, to fit in, to belong to them. So really the best thing you can do is to be around people that are striving and that are answering bigger and better questions other than how do I serve the small self of love, approval, validation, and comfort? And how do I serve this bigger, larger purpose that is within myself, and that are people that are striving for that same thing?
Strive to be the dumbest person in the room. When you're the smartest person in the room, great, amazing, I'm happy for you, but it's time to find another room.
It's time to find another room.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels great. Your ego's like, yes, I'm killing this. I'm so much better than everyone, Egos love to compare, but it's a much more humbling and productive place to be is the dumbest place in the room.
You hit on identity when talking about being a high performer. So then is high performance more about identity and emotion than it is actually a skill set? So is it us being able to transform or evolve, dare I even say improve our relationship to our identity rather than sharpening skill sets?
Once you become so good at whatever it is that you're after, it's a mental game. It's about changing your relationship with the identity, which the identity is formed from your default network, which is formed from basically the debate is like somewhere between 7 and 14. Okay, so your identity is anything after I am. So I am this, I am that, I am worthy or unworthy. I have these capabilities or not. And before you become conscious to that default network, which is your unconscious, you will buy into that identity. But that identity is working for your safety, is working for your familiar, which most of the time is in opposition of your full potential. So a lot of this work is identity work in the sense of creating a new relationship with this identity that was formed when you needed more co-regulation and you didn't get it, and not believing the stories that identity gives you, which would label you as your last result, that would label you as all your past experiences. You are not those things. Those are the things that have happened to you, but the ego will say, I am that. And so you want to have this relationship where you stop believing your ego and you stop believing the story that your mind is feeding you. And to get out of that, you have to feel the feeling of that story. So instead of thinking about all of your past failures, you need to feel what it feels like somatically in your body, what failure feels like. And then from that place of connection and safety, create a new story by taking a new action. So the work is separating from the past identity, not believing the old stories of the past identity, and literally sacrificing that old self for something much greater, for your true self.
So well said. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
I really appreciated that interpretation. So kind of still staying on the vein of the nervous system, how does a high performer know when their nervous system is working for them or against them?
Do you have an upper limit? Most of us, I mean, let's just take you, or we can look at myself. Most of us have an upper limit on how much success we can hold that feels safe in our system based off of our default network. And so if where you are now is your fullest potential and you have full self-mastery, somehow you have done it. I don't know how, but somehow you have done it. If there's still a part of you that knows that you're capable of more, but no matter how much efforting you're putting in, you arrive at the same place, it's not supporting you.
Do you think most people are aware of this concept of upper limits when it comes to high performance, or is it just a constant striving? Because if I'm thinking in order for me to be a high performer, it means reaching this upper limit, it means there is a threshold. Or is it just always thinking that so that I'm always striving more?
Yeah, I think upper limits are not something that we're consciously thinking of. I think upper limits are something that we experience because we are beings with nervous systems. If we didn't have nervous systems rooted in attachment, which means rooted in connection, which is co-regulation, then we wouldn't experience upper limits. We would just be these energetic beings manifesting the unmanifested, quite effortlessly. And but we're both. We're both. We're this energetic being trying to manifest the unmanifested. And we are this very human self that has a nervous system that is designed to stay in the familiar and stay in connection based off of the familiars, based off of what you received in your past and your childhood. So these things can feel like they're at opposition, but kind of back to what we said in the beginning, actually your nervous system and its limits or its addiction to familiarity is actually your curriculum, is almost like your personal trainer, and that resistance that it causes is your personal trainer giving you the curriculum to your fully actualized self. But most of the time we just don't know how to use the feedback of the nervous system.
And aren't really upper limits just thrust upon us in society? I always go back to this reference of, I forget the guy's name, I think it was in the, 40s, 50s maybe, the first human to ever break a sub 5 minute mile.
I knew you were going to say this.
And then
everyone did it.
We never thought it was possible. It's not humanly possible. They said it's not humanly possible. This guy did it. And then I think that same year, like a dozen other people did it.
Yes.
Just because the brain saw, oh, it is possible. Therefore I can do it.
Yeah. And so based off of where you grew up, how your parents were, the level of attunement, meaning how well your parents saw your emotional, physical, and spiritual needs and met them. Based off of all of that, your brain and your nervous system will create an upper limit of what it thinks that you're deserving of having and what you're capable of having, which is not rooted in any real reality. It's rooted in familiarity.
Yes. And the little 17-year-old boy from Roanoke, Virginia, and me from the middle of nowhere.
I know where this is.
Literally my last guess was, she was like, oh, you're from Roanoke? And I was like, no one knows Roanoke.
I know where
She's
this
from
is.
Virginia. No way.
I've been there.
Why?
Okay.
I'm going to derail my interview here. But.
I used to ride horses professionally. And at one point, a girl that I worked with, her parents were from Roanoke, and we shared so many similar values, and I just loved them. And they were like, you have to come to our family farm in Roanoke, and it's so artsy and it's so beautiful, and the mountains are there. And so,
May I ask, who was the family?
Yeah, I don't remember their last names for some reason.
I wonder if I know that.
But it was Susan.
Dye?
No, but she's an artist there.
Oh, an artist.
And he's a doctor, and she's an artist. Landry is the doctor's name. I can't remember the mom's name. It's Margot Landry. And the dad was a doctor and had that last name.
Okay. Odds are we're like 1 degree separation.
That's
away.
hilarious. It's tiny.
Yeah, it's tiny,
It's beautiful.
I lived in the mountains outside of Roanoke. Technically, the town was called Boone's Mill. That's the sticks.
Boone's Mill. Yeah. That name gives away a lot.
But here we are in LA, everybody. Somehow we made it.
Somehow. Look at us.
Here we are. We're doing the damn thing.
Outside of the familiar.
In every way possible. That's for damn sure. I feel like when I go back home, I'm just going to keep derailing. When I go back home, Roanoke, parts of Virginia I call home, but really home, I grew up in Roanoke. And I feel now, how do I say this? Having worked on so much over the past several years, my emotional, mental, spiritual state, a lot of nervous system work, actively and passively. There's something to going back to your roots that your nervous system just like throws in your face in a very positive way. Not in a like, oh my God, look how far I've come, or look at, these people. It's just it's like I feel like Interstellar. I'm like living the past and the present at the same time. My nervous system is reminding me of, Chase,
how you used to feel.
Remember when you thought this was the limit? Remember how you used to feel here and you thought this was the world? And yeah, sure it is. I mean, in some capacity, nature and nurture do build our perception of reality, and whether we live in Boone's Mill or we live in Beverly Hills, wherever you come from. But it's just, I think to me, the biggest telltale sign of how I have become a high performer in the nervous system world, at least, by going back to areas where my nervous system was created and formed, and even these limits thrust upon me. So I think, my 2 cents here for anybody going, how am I a high performer? How have I regulated my nervous system? Physically go back to the areas where it was created, where it was molded, maybe where you have direct relation to, I have to change this, or this used to cause me such stress, anxiety, or even like positive states of being. Does it hold the same weight for you? I think that's a really good, if not one of the strongest litmus tests for what we're talking about.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there. I can't remember who said it, like Ram Dass or somebody said, if you think you're enlightened, might have been Thich Nhat Hanh, I can't remember. If you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family. So you're having this opposite of that. You're having this like, wow, when I go back, I'm realizing how I don't respond the same way, and I don't believe the beliefs that I used to believe. I had the exact opposite experience. So after college and university, I went on this path of discovery and service in a lot of ways. But I went and I moved to Southeast Asia, and I was a teacher, and I went on this spiritual, I didn't know it was spiritual at the time, but I went on this journey.
We hardly do, right?
Yeah, I didn't know. I was clueless. Something new, I didn't know. But I was just following these breadcrumbs and these nudges, and I just knew I wanted to be of service. And so I went to Thailand and I started teaching, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole we could get into. But I really started to feel and sense this deep visceral feeling of unsafety in my system. And I was having all these physical symptoms, which again, there's so many roads that lead here, but I was a professional athlete my whole life. I really cared about the way my body appeared to look. And, as life would have it, giving me my perfect curriculum, I gained 40 pounds, my hair was falling out, all of these things that were pointing to like, you don't feel safe. You are not in a state of thriving. You're in a state of protection. And when I got there and I got away from my past and the things that had put me into a state of protection, I started to slowly unpack that and really get this deep, visceral sense of safety and okayness, and that I could do more and I could achieve more and I could give more importantly. And then the second I would get back with my family, my nervous system was like, and it was so hard to stop being the plug and outlet for me. And then it created this avoidance in me where I would just avoid my family. I just didn't want to be around them because it brought up this very old me and old reactions that I was like, this is not me anymore. How do I keep reacting in this same way that I feel so miles apart, but then put me in a room with my brother and my mom, and then bam, there's me again. And then so that again created these avoidance strategies in me where I was really trying to get a freedom from that discomfort. I was like, well, I know where I'm happy. I'm happy on the beach and surfing and with people I don't know. So I'm just going to run away here and I can follow my aliveness, and a bit of this like spiritual bypassing, like they're the problem.
Right.
And I think a lot of personal development work and therapy can actually lead you there, can actually say like, follow your aliveness, follow your happiness. And actually the work, I mean, of course, if there's physical harm and all of that, go as far as you can. But if it's just emotional and psychological discomfort, there's a curriculum in there for you. And I really learned the difference between freedom from and freedom to. And I only learned that through my family, because I became such a different person away from them and away from my past. And I almost didn't even have these same patterns and these same upper limits. I was really anew. And I really had to learn how to sort through all of that and really not avoid anything and become the person that was not a victim anymore. And that was unoffendable, unirritatable,
unfuckwithable.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have gotten that without them teaching me that, because I would have just followed my aliveness and gone where I didn't have these issues. But thankfully, I took on the curriculum, and it's such a bigger level of freedom to create a freedom to anything you want than just these avoidance strategies that move away from discomfort and struggle.
When I think high performance, if I would have to describe how and why I think I'm a high performer, or how I know I'm doing high performance work and curating and developing and honing high performance habits, it really comes down to identity and intuition. Again, going back to the example of when I go back home now and I have this sense of not disconnect, not better than, but just the ability, reverence for, absolutely, but to just put myself in the position of myself then and myself now and be able to feel what a regulated nervous system feels like. For me, it comes back to, I was ignoring my intuition then and therefore not acting out of my truest identity. Now, as a 40-year-old man, I know what acting out of my true identity looks like and feels like because my nervous system is regulated. And so I think for a lot of people, if you're struggling to go, what does high performance feels like? It feels like standing firm in your identity. And I think you can only really do that when your nervous system is regulated, or you know how to put yourself on the path to nervous system regulation. And again, the best litmus test for that I have found is to put yourself back in situations where you can actually test that.
Yes. And the reason why you're saying the only reason why you could feel that is because when you have a regulated nervous system, which is why I do nervous system work with all high performers and athletes, is because your nervous system is a pattern from the past.
Yes. Yeah. It's what we have trained it to be and what external forces, again, nature and nurture, have molded it to be.
And it's addicted to love, approval, and validation. It formed its patterns based off of who and what you needed to be in order to stay in connection with your tribe then. But your tribe isn't then, and your past and those patterns then, in almost everyone that I have found, is almost in opposition of that truer identity or that true self, or that, in psychology, self with the capital S, or in religion, like God's path for you, however you want to orient. But a lot of times those are in opposition. And so unless you're doing this nervous system work to regulate, to look at the patterns of your past, to look at where you have resistance, you're really not doing the work to become that fully actualized self, because your nervous system will win. Your nervous system is your survival path. And if it's survival or being authentic, no, you're built to survive.
What then are some signs of nervous system dysregulation that can sabotage performance, even in highly skilled individuals, even in someone who would categorize himself as a high performer?
I think that one thing that people think, especially when I work with a lot of athletes and they're looking at people that have already self-actualized or that are performing at a very high level, and they think, okay, these people aren't suffering with the things I am. They don't have that fear response anymore. They're not getting shut down by the pressure or the fear of failure, but they are. They just have a completely different relationship with it, because when that sensation comes up in your body of fear or pressure or whatever it is, before you've done this work, that sensation comes with a story. And that story, again, is based off the default network, based off of your past. And that story is trying to get you to believe a very old identity about yourself, that you are a failure, you choke under pressure, you're not, some rooted in I'm not good enough is the base of it all. And if you're not doing this work to separate sensation from story, you're going to get stuck. And high performers and people that are winning medals and doing their fullest potential, it's not that fear doesn't come up, because fear will come up because they're doing something at their edge. All high performers are constantly finding the edge and meeting it, which means that's the opposite of homeostasis. So if it's the opposite of homeostasis, you're going to have fear. And my work is to get you to not avoid that fear and to not avoid it, and two, not believe the story that goes along with the fear, because again, the stories of the past. And so separating sensation from story, and then getting used to feeling that fear in your body. It lives somatically within you, meaning you're going to have a sensation in your throat, your chest, your stomach. And what I have noticed that high performers do is they don't run from that. They don't avoid that. They embrace it. They question the story, and then they take the action anyway. And so if you're noticing that sensation comes up and the story comes up and you're not even aware that you're believing a story, there's your sign. Or you're aware that there is a story and you're believing it and you're getting stuck and you're self-sabotaging or avoiding, procrastinating, there's your sign.
So let's talk then, stepping into that battlefield and choosing to face it rather than running from it. I think a lot of people will define courage as the same way. Someone being courageous is not someone who is fearless. It's someone acting despite of fear. So then let's talk resilience under pressure. How do you define resilience in the context of high performance?
Resilience is being able to sit with sensation and choose and lead yourself in the way that is in congruence to your highest potential, which if you don't have that resilience, or I guess we could replace it with capacity, and that fear is outside of your capacity, then it's going to take you into story and then into a familiar behavior, which will result in a more familiar level result. So if you want to build that resilience or that capacity, you got to get used to being uncomfortable, and like somatically uncomfortable, because the story in your brain about your capability and your potential and who and what you are is way more painful than the actual experience that you're trying to avoid and trying to run from. And so any high performer, anybody on the path to self-actualization, mastery, reaching their potential, you have to get good at feeling discomfort. You have to get good at it. You will never, if you are on this path, you will never not be uncomfortable. You're choosing to be uncomfortable so that you can be of contribution and of service, which is paradoxically enlightenment and incredibly comfortable. You have to choose that saying, like, choose your uncomfortability. Do you want to be the type of person that's soothing themselves with wine, weed, scrolling, shopping, whatever your addiction is, to gain this low-level surface comfortability that will never fulfill you, will never be enough? Or do you want to choose the discomfort of constantly pressing your edges to serve something much larger and greater than you, which actually leads to fulfillment?
Is resilience then a honeable, trainable skill set?
1,000%. 1,000%.
How do I train resilience?
Okay, that's a good question. How do you train resilience is so I do this night routine that I got from the book Inner Excellence, and I would recommend it to everyone. And actually that book, when I read that book, it's kind of embarrassing, but I was like, gee, this is so close to the book that I wrote, right? And you in your own little world, you think you have so many original thoughts, and you think you're like the only person that has come to this, and all this stuff. And then you read a book that is like exactly what you would write, and you're like,
damn it, who was reading my journal?
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, okay, truth is truth, and people on this path will find truth. And what I'm teaching you is just, I'm pointing to a version of truth through what science can describe, but I'm saying the same thing as almost a cancer doctor is saying. It's like, you got to get back to wholeness. Everyone's pointing to the same truth. But anyways, back to your question of building resilience. So this work and nervous system work can get, especially if you're not working with a practitioner, it can get really like, where do I start? And I think the book of Inner Excellence and what he prescribes you to do at night is the easiest way to practice this work without it getting overwhelming. And so what he suggests that you do is that you visualize your day at the end of the night, and you see all of the moments where you served the smaller self, where you served this fearful self or the ego, for lack of better words, and made a more comfortable choice. And you rewind yourself. So maybe, if you're in the boardroom, maybe you agreed to a budget that actually you don't agree to, but it was easier just to say yes to in that moment. Or maybe you're a high performance athlete and you're a surfer, and instead of like just sending it and breaking the board, you actually didn't take that wave. You like hesitated and let the fear take over. Maybe you're a parent and you lost your temper with your child, or you're a partner, you're in a relationship and you chose to blame them instead of take mutual responsibility. Whatever it is, whatever you're working on, you see yourself where you serve the smaller self, and you see that yourself in those moments where you didn't lead from integrity, and you feel what that brings up. Because again, all of these things, how your nervous system keeps you stuck is through sensation that you try to avoid by taking a familiar action. And so that sensation will come up, and then this is my part of it. I need you to presence with that sensation for 90 seconds is what neuroscientists would say. So it integrates. So presence with that. You'll feel like a fiery in your chest, a lump in your throat, a drop in your stomach. Presence with that. And this is the most important part, because if you don't do this, you're not building the resiliency or the capacity. So you want to sit with that sensation. And then once that sensation, it doesn't have to be gone, but once it lowers in intensity, then I want you to see how your fullest potential would have led yourself through that. So if you're the surfer, there's no hesitation. You send it, you break the board. If you're in that boardroom, you politely say, I understand this is not popular opinion, but I know that this is not right, and I'm going to choose to make another decision. When you're in that argument with your partner, you say, I can't see how I've contributed, but I know I am. Get curious. Can you explain it to me more? You visualize yourself doing the opposite of what you did, that is leading and more in service of this highest potential. And if you do that every night, to this day, I still have to see 3 or 4 moments in the day that I need to reprogram and rewire. But that is one of the simplest tools that I've heard of, that really condenses this work and gets you on the path of building more capacity, not acting from this default network, and showing your brain and your nervous system, hey, there's a different way that's actually more in coherence and congruence with my highest potential.
To share a personal item, one of the ways that I've been struggling as a new dad is letting go, honestly, of just like daily habits. And so I'm wondering, am I on the path to becoming a high-performing dad? I have been kind of doing what you've been saying, but I've been asking myself, where was I selfish in this encounter with my son? Okay, I for sure. And like, even just in the smallest way, and I'm defining being selfish as, where was I doing anything for myself in the presence of my son? And especially...
Wow, I have chills.
Really?
This is really amazing.
It's helpful because... One, I think it's a good area to shine a light on in anyone's life, whether you have a kid or not, if it's with your dog or your partner or just, anyone. And even just like the smallest things, one that I've definitely gotten better with now is I would have this kind of like order of events with certain supplements, or like in this waking time, in the morning, I got to get my water. I want to get my probiotic. I want to get my urolithin A. I want to get my sunlight, all these little things. And so also giving myself grace, but I'm going, oh, Chase, you chose to do this instead of getting the bottle that was ready for your son to give to him because he was like whining. And in the moment I would go, oh, he's just whining. It's fine. Like, it's going to be 30 seconds. Well, he doesn't understand 30 seconds. He just thinks there's this human who supposedly is taking care of me. I'm screaming and yelling, I'm hungry, and he knows what to do, but he's not doing it because he wants to take care of himself. And so that has really just that little question of, where am I doing anything for myself in the presence of my son, has radically shifted how I approach fatherhood.
Okay, this is a level of conversation that maybe people will relate to and maybe won't, because first of all, some level of people won't even relate to knowing this supplement regime, right?
Right.
And they won't even have the discipline to uphold it. So there's always this relationship and pendulum of, we have to go to one extreme and then we kind of have to go to the other extreme to land at the truth. And I'm a naturally very disciplined person, and discipline feels way better than me because I feel unworthy. So if I am doing all that I can do, it kind of mitigates that unworthiness that I used to feel constantly.
And for me, it feels like it's what I'm supposed to do. It's still very much hard for me to get out of that ingrained military mentality.
Yes.
If I wasn't disciplined, I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. I was disobeying orders. I was getting out of my regime of what it means to be, this warrior. And like I've been out for like, God, how long? I got out in 2009. It's been years, decades. And so now it's just like, it's crazy how much our habits are ingrained into our identity that make us feel worthy.
Nervous system.
Yes, exactly. It's all connected.
Yeah. And so I really had to, this is a really high level conversation because actually and life is so intelligent and it's giving you the exact curriculum, and you are being courageous enough and awake enough to see the curriculum, but it's, what life is trying to teach you is you actually don't need those things. You don't need those things. You don't need that checklist to feel worthy. You don't need that checklist to be optimal. And that actually you've gotten the lesson of being disciplined and you've gotten that lesson. Ooh. And so now I know. And so now there's this bigger curriculum being put out for you of like, I don't have needs and I can be optimal based off of presence alone. That's what life is apprenticing you for.
This permission slip.
Yes.
Wow.
Life is apprenticing you for this. And it is, I have chills saying it. It's really, because most listeners, we need to be coaching them on how to be disciplined and how to not give in to these comforts. You've mastered that. You've mastered that. So now you have to give up discipline for this very high level of presence that says, in this moment, what is the highest thing I can serve? Which is different than discipline. Well, I mean, it's a discipline to do that.
Right. I never thought I would hear you have to give up discipline when interviewing someone about how to be a high performer.
About discipline.
Like, it's crazy.
That's why I said it's a really high level conversation. I mean, most people will spend a lifetime learning how to find freedom and discipline and learning how to give up comfort for discipline. You've mastered it.
Well, that's because Jocko says discipline is freedom, right?
Yes.
Discipline equals freedom.
And it is. But I believe, and you can test it out, but I believe there's even this higher form of freedom, which is presence, which is no checklist.
There's nothing more important than that.
There's nothing more important. Yeah. So in that moment, if you're present, not serving this checklist of who and what I need to be worthy, if I'm present in this present moment, where am I being called to serve?
I'm just absorbing that a little bit. Yeah. I'm trying to be present with this revelation.
Yeah.
I can't wait to listen back during the edit on this one. Wow. What does it actually look like then, or maybe even feel like, to expand our capacity under stress?
Feel what you don't want to feel. So in any moment, there is some emotion that you're trying to avoid based off your current capacity. So your ability to sit with sensation and discomfort is equal to what you'll be able to achieve and create in this world. Because even sitting in a conversation, you could have sensation. You could have the want to please, the want to be digestible, the want that would serve this smaller self. And it's going to feel really unsafe to be in an integrity in those moments. And so what does that mean? Okay, that means there's going to be a sensation within my system. And so if you have trained and created habits around feeling what you don't want to feel, in those moments when a sensation can come up, you can acknowledge it, but not buy into it and choose integrity. And so building capacity and practice looks like having a practice where you sit with emotions that you don't want to feel. Most people don't want to feel unworthy. They don't want to feel embarrassed. They don't want to feel irritated, and they don't want to feel offended. So find those places where you feel that and create a practice around sitting with what that feels like in your body, not the story about that, not the story of what that means, because those two things are separate. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah?
Thank you.
Okay.
To kind of piggyback off of that, to get into where I think a lot of us might go to after that, and it's this concept of setbacks or failures even. How can high performers reframe failures or setbacks as part of the growth experience, as part of the experience as a whole, rather than threats to our identity or this identity we're trying to embody and step into?
Yeah, exactly. And going back to the original thing we talked about at the beginning, you as a high performer or someone on the path to self-actualization, you have to, an assumption about life that you're going to have to agree and commit to is that every obstacle is an opportunity. Life is happening for you. So when you have a failure, you don't get to be a victim and say, oh, this is happening to me. I'm such a loser. I'm unworthy. All of that is victimization and a victim mindset. You have to say, what is this asking me to become? Calmer under pressure. What is this asking me to become? A better 3-point shooter. What is this asking me to become? If you get in that habit, then you'll see every failure not as a setback, but as an opportunity, and actually a friendly opportunity, literally laying out the curriculum of what you need to be practicing. I mean, there's a Nike ad of Michael Jordan. I mean, most everybody considers Michael Jordan the best basketball player of all time. Does that mean he didn't fail? No, that meant he failed, didn't take it personally, and kept taking the responsibility to be the one to take the shot at the buzzer, to be the one to take the 3-point shot, be the one to carry his team. That's a huge amount of responsibility. And at no point when he failed did he think, maybe I'm not the one. No, who do I need to become to be the one that can uphold this pressure, that can uphold this responsibility? So on a very practical level, failure is a story. And it's also a sensation. Don't get caught in the story of I am a failure. No, you failed under this amount of pressure. What does it feel like to fail? Okay, it's probably, most people say it's like a thing in their throat or a sensation in your chest. Can you presence with that? And now what's the feedback? What's the next right action?
Does where we feel failure on our body matter? Does where we feel it, is it guiding us in a certain direction? Should we lean into, if I feel it in my throat versus feel it in my chest versus in my gut kind of thing?
Yeah. Isn't that funny? Back to the thing that all people are pointing to the same truths, Ayurvedic has its own way of doing this. Chakra has its own way, of explaining this. I found a little bit of patterns in when people have it in their stomach versus their chest versus their throat, but it's really not anything that in my practice I pay attention to. I just know, okay, I have sensation. It's going to be somewhere in my body. It's my job to presence with the sensation versus avoiding it and versus believing the story that my identity is going to want to attach to it based off of my default network of the past. So really your only job is just, where's the sensation? Instead of distracting myself, can I just feel it? Which sounds simple. It's difficult.
Oh, it takes years. And
years.
I was just going to say, to kind of piggyback off of my previous personal story of nervous system regulation and being in the presence of my past geographical, physical place versus my life now. It also, I can reflect on, I always felt it in my throat. I felt like I was not allowed to say what I felt, not only to be truth, but to be my truth and to agree or disagree, especially growing up in the Bible Belt. I always felt like in my throat if I said anything like, can you explain that? Like, what do you mean? What did God really mean here? Or, you said you felt this. I felt like I couldn't say that. I felt like I couldn't question or disagree or just, ask anyone to expand on anything. I just had to accept what I heard, accept what I was told as the way, the truth, and the light. And so now it's kind of ironic where I literally just talk for a living and my throat has no problem just saying whatever it wants now, but loosely. But it's just interesting. I think these are all great, I don't want to say like telltale signs, but they all matter.
They all matter.
They all matter. Where we feel something, how we feel it. If we connect the dots to the bigger picture of what we're doing, particularly in the path of being a high performer, I mean, I think that has to matter, right? Being a high performer means having to take account for all the dots.
All the dots. And everybody, if you're anything like me, it's funny that I do this work because when I left my parents' house, although a lot of things happen in my childhood that are not optimal in any way, I thought it was extremely disrespectful to even look at it. Like, I'm like, my parents did the best they could. I did feel loved as a child despite things that had happened. And
what do you mean exactly? Like, dare I question?
I question my
parenting style?
I just felt like it was so disrespectful to look at all the things that they did wrong versus all the things that they had done right.
Yeah.
But I wasn't honoring my nervous system that said, yeah, you might consciously want to believe that, but there are imprints on your nervous system that are there, and it's an avoidance to not look at it. And so it's this really tricky thing that I think it's one of the things that I do really well is you do have to know your past and you do have to context it, but you don't get to be victim to it. So I like both of it. Like, you do have to look at it because I didn't want to look at it. I'm like, I'm not a victim. I'm moving forward. And then my nervous system's like, the hell you are, And so I had to look back and I had to look at, okay, even though my parents did their best, it wasn't optimal for my system. And so I had to acknowledge that to move past that. But you can't, because another thing people do is they get indulgent on their past, and they think that it's this get out of jail free card because something in their past happened. And if you are a high performer, no, you cannot get stuck in victimhood. And you can't get stuck in indulging in your path. In my programs, we spend 4 months looking at your past, and we don't really look back anymore.
4 months.
4 months.
Wow.
We look at your past, we get context, we understand your patterns, we know why. We know why you're formed the way you are. We'll know why you have these upper limits. But then after those 4 months, I don't coach you going backward. I don't do inner child work anymore. If it comes up, I'm not like, we're past 4 months, but I think it gives.
You're never allowed to use the past tense in front of me ever again.
Ever. I just think that it can get to where we're constantly going back and we're getting stuck and we're indulging. And I just like for you to know you are the way you are for a good reason. And I have so much endless compassion for that. And now we're moving forward. And now it's just sensation. And can you build the resilience and the capacity to feel the sensation and choose to lead with a different action? So that's how I presence it. That's how I move through it, is like, you have to look back, and everybody asks me, like, do you? Yes, you do. You have to acknowledge it. You have to see it. You have to update it. But then once you do that, you don't have to keep going back there in my line of work.
Your work is your work.
My work is my work.
Your work is your work, yes. So I would like to kind of get a little bit more specific now. We've kind of been talking about it, but really the mind-body connection. We're looking at performance and high performance. And I've seen you talk about systemic understanding. You talk about how a systemic understanding of how the body and mind work together. How do you specifically integrate those two?
Yeah, I think that when you understand that 80 to 85% of your thoughts and therefore reactions are coming from your neuroception of your nervous system, kind of just changes things,
What does that really mean?
That means like when you have a thought, let's say that you're in competition and all of a sudden that you have a thought that, oh shit, I don't know if I can make this basket, or I don't know if I can, perform to the level I want. And then you just try to change that thought. Well, you're missing 80 to 85% of what caused it. So I think that it just context how we work with each other or work with yourself, because really you need to change your nervous system state, because if it's a thought that is based in fear, you're in a state of protection. And so instead of getting caught on the level of the mind, that's not very effective. You can just go straight to the source 80 to 85% of the time and go directly to the source, change your state, your thoughts will shift.
I want to kind of nitpick a little bit on that, going to the source. I'm wondering, is there any world where that might be considered, we'll say, cheating or taking the easy way when trying to become a higher performer, instead of, because one could say that there would be work involved before just going straight to the source of something you want to work on to regulate your nervous system, to understand the systemic connection between mind and body, rather than just, allowing yourself to just go through the process and kind of learning the lessons that come along with that. I'm not sure if I'm translating this
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I don't know if this is what you mean, but like, I think that there's a lot of spiritual bypass, and like, there's a lot of like, let's take, even though I actually kind of like him, David Goggins, for example, like if that's what you mean, like, just change your physical state, get stronger, get weaker. Like don't
all you
agree
need to
with
do
it.
is this instead of just allowing yourself the journey to get to that.
Right.
Okay.
And so what I'm saying is, no, you have to go on the journey. I've tried. Trust me, I tried to not go on the freaking journey. You have to go on the journey. You cannot spiritual bypass. It's not mind over matter. You have to see what's coming up and bring safety to whatever that is. I'm just saying the most effective way of being on the journey is to not get so stuck in the story, because the story is based off the state. So what I have found in practice and then in science is go to the source of the story, which is going to be, again, that sensation, presence with the sensation, then question the mind.
Ooh, I like that.
And then go forward.
Okay.
But, if there was a way to spiritually bypass and reach your full potential, that's exactly what we'd be talking about today, because I did not want to do this. I did not want to reopen my past. I did not want to look at my wounds. I did not want to go in the journey. I'm like, I want this. How do I get there? And how do I get this? And if there was a cheat code or if there was a bypassing, I would not have been above it. But luckily, life had other plans, and I learned that you got to go on the journey.
You have to, right? And I think a lot of people, we hear a lot of this more happening, especially in like the spiritual healing world, which I believe, I'm sure you would too, is a crucial component to being a high performer. And a lot of people are jumping to fast track their problems, so to speak, by just doing the most intense medicine they can.
Yes.
Instead of starting with journaling, therapy, talking about your feelings, whether like it's with you out loud, with a partner, with a loved one, whatever, and they're just going straight into a week-long ayahuasca retreat or ketamine therapy. And I'm talking about things that I have all done. I haven't sat with Aya yet, but like psychedelics, ketamine, psilocybin, MDMA, all these things have profoundly changed my life and given me profound healing, quite literally saved my life. But it's only because of the years of the work up to it, then had these experiences, then coupled with the integration after. It's work, experience, work. You have to have the work sandwich. You can't just bypass. You can't just jump to the solution, because I think personally, if you do that, you're missing the point, but also you're not really going to have any long-term change, because you're going to have an experience that is going to make you question things that you have no past or future relation to anchor it in. What does it mean? What is this changing? What am I reflecting on? What am I supposed to question? It's just, holy shit, what the hell is that? Fuck it, let me go on with my life kind of thing. Yeah,
or man, I want to say so much to that. And if you're looking at nervous system, let's just try to root it back to this, which is why I love the nervous system. In order to create change, real lasting change, going back to the thing that I said, that you are this nervous system, you are this human with a nervous system and an imprint and a familiar that is safe to you. And then you are this energetic being here to manifest the unmanifested. If you just do things that get you closer to the energetic part of you, but you're not doing anything to rewrite this nervous system, or you're doing things that are in direct opposition of your familiarity. I mean, this is where psychotic breaks happen. This is, it's for a reason. And nervous system work is titration, 10%, just 10%, building capacity, resiliency to stretch your current capacity, to feel more safe in the unfamiliar. You need to do this over time. And if you just do these, even types of breath work or these types of things where you're seeing these huge somatic releases with no safety, with no orientation to what that is or what you're doing, that's dangerous. And trust me, I know it because I've done it. Because again, I didn't want to go on the journey. So I was like, I can just scream and yell and I'll be free. I'm like, yeah, sign me up for that, And then But also, luckily, I'm very rooted in practicality and science, and that's not the way. You cannot bypass your curriculum. You cannot bypass the imprint that you have. There are no mistakes. You have that imprint for a reason. So do your curriculum. Don't go sit with Aya for a week and all you're going to do is throw up anyway. Like, there is no replacing feeling what you do not want to feel. There's no replacing for that, no matter spiritual bypass. And that's honestly, this work led me to spirituality, something source, something bigger than me, unconditional love. I started with spirituality, and then I was in the spiritual community, and now I'm finding a lot of things about the spiritual community that I find can be quite dangerous. I find that in anything, there actually needs to be some sort of discipline or sacrifice. And spirituality, I find, and not everyone and not everything. So I'm just kind of saying what I've been going through, is it can really serve this small self. Like, I want to manifest this car. I want to manifest this meeting. I want to manifest being seen like this or doing. It can really be this vehicle of delusion and serving the small self, because there's no discipline. There's no sacrifice. What are you sacrificing to do that? What's the discipline in that? You just get to get in a higher frequency and ask for whatever you want. What are you contributing? What are you giving to get that? And that's where some of the foundations of like religion or kind of actually really turning your life over to God gives you more of in my experience, has given me more of like a discipline. Like, I have to actually sacrifice these small needs to serve something bigger and greater. And when we're just doing ayahuasca and psilocybin and going, and not, I love those things. Trust me, those have a time and a place, and they're here for a reason. There are no mistakes, but there has to be a discipline before you do that.
Or even to peel it back a little bit, where I see like really the wellness community right now annoys the shit out of me. I see so many people, no shade here, maybe a little bit, but
well, it's shade because we can see the danger in it.
Yes, literal danger in these communities, these businesses, these platforms, these things popping up where we're just jumping into hardcore, too much. We're having like freaking DJ parties in a sauna with dozens of people. No, thank you. You're cold plunging inside of a sauna on an assault bike with 10 other. I'm like, no, thank you. Like, and not everybody even really needs to do this stuff yet. There's work involved to get you to a place to where getting into a sauna is actually going to do anything.
Yeah. I've come to realize that there is a discipline before a flow. And if you're trying to just get into this flow or this higher vibration or this higher state, you're kind of just missing the whole point. There's always a discipline. There's always another word of sacrifice to get to something else. And I feel like we're just kind of like McDonaldizing all of this stuff, conveniencizing all of this. And that's not the point. The point is self-actualization, self-mastery. Who do I need to become? And most people are doing this because they want to be good. They're searching for goodness within you. And for those people, like, I hear you, I've been there, I've done that. Just really try to tune into your own discernment. Truth has a resonance with inside of your body, and you will feel it. And when it's in truth, when you've done something from truth, I'm not going to say it gives you happiness, but it will give you fulfillment. And if your practices aren't leading to something deeper and a greater fulfillment, I would encourage you to sit with yourself and your discernment and say, okay, which part of me is this serving?
Speaking of flow, I wanted to get into the psychology, a little bit of flow and ease. How do you find flow, that state where performance feels effortless?
So in my line of work, I have two things I like to call it. I like to call it pure performance, and then there's peak performance. So pure performance is something completely within your control at all times, which is saying, I am going to integrate my ego and I am going to show up to my performance, whether that's the boardroom, the bedroom, an athletic pursuit, from freedom, nothing to avoid. I'm not avoiding losing. I'm not avoiding winning. I'm not I've integrated my ego. I'm unoffendable. I'm unirritatable. And I have this emotional mastery, meaning there's nothing I'm unwilling to feel. So that's pure performance state. You come into this state with this complete state of freedom, and there's no ego or small self to uphold. Detachment. And once you're there, once you can create that on demand, which is very possible. Like before I came here, my practice was a 7-minute breath work, David Elliott, Spotify. And then I was like, okay, what would I want? What wouldn't I want? What wouldn't my ego want to be? Embarrassed, not know the answer. Okay. Seen as an idiot, whatever. And then I'm like, okay, that's a possibility. What would that feel like?
You're over 3 so far. Don't worry. No problems here.
Okay, good. So what would that feel like? Okay, it would feel like this. Okay, now I'm not avoiding anything. I felt what that would feel like. I don't need to avoid it. It wasn't that painful. It was 90 seconds of a little bit of uncomfortability. So now I don't need anything from this conversation. You don't need to serve my ego. You don't need to tell me how great I am. You don't need to tell me anything that I haven't already insourced in myself. So you come here and you're free. There's no service of the ego here. It's unattachment. And then how you get into what I call peak performance, or what most people know as pure performance, is actually you need a stimulus or a sense of pressure that's about 10% outside your current capacity. So this is where I think people say pressure is a privilege, because without that pressure, you don't get into flow.
I think, sorry if I'm butchering resources here, but I think I had Stephen Collar on the show a few years ago.
Oh, yeah?
And this is like really ringing a bell. It was like a very finite amount of outside of our comfort zone.
Yes.
Which is what I think pretty mind-blowing for most people when we think where we have to jump to be a high performer. We have to go from our comfort zone to extremes. Eventually, maybe, but just push yourself to the edge. 10%.
10%. And then that goes back to the nervous system science of titration, just 10%. So if that's why also then competition is such a freaking privilege, because you're around people that can push you that extra 10%. That's why pressure of having to earn a certain amount or having to come and contribute in a certain way is such a privilege, because it can bring you into this flow state where there's no self anymore. It's just higher contribution and service. And now you're saying things, you're putting connections before that you've never done, and you're performing more than you knew that you could. And it's an amazing privileged place.
What do you think are some of the easiest or best places to start in terms of practical ways someone can train the nervous system to access that ease state more often?
I think it goes back to what you kept asking me to identify, which is resilience and capacity. You really have to, everything comes down to sensation. Everything is a sensation in your system. Capacity is the ability to hold for more sensation and stay present. So going back to that nighttime routine, seeing where your default network 1 versus your full potential 1, feeling what you don't want to feel, visualizing yourself doing the opposite. You're building your capacity, you're creating more resilience, and then doing things that stretch you, putting yourself in the position that stretch you daily.
Would you say, is there a difference between ease and comfort when it comes to the context of growth and performance?
Yeah, I don't love the words calm, ease, because those words come with tons of connotations with them that I actually don't experience. When I'm in flow, it's like this very high vibration, and it feels just like coherence to me. I wouldn't use calm. I wouldn't use I could use the word effortless, because there's no thought. There's no distance between what I'm a thought and doing. It's all one. But I love
Which
the
is really
words.
just presence.
Presence. It all comes back to presence.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what is unconditional love?
Being present.
Presence. So
not taking your supplements while your son needs his bottle.
So yeah, what was I saying?
Talking about, excuse me, let me go back to the ease difference.
Oh, yeah.
Ease versus comfort.
Yeah, it's presence, it's coherence. And sometimes within that presence, you're doing things that are hard. So there's a sense of, I can tackle this. You're not even questioning, you're just doing, and you're noticing in hindsight that you tackled it.
Kind of getting towards the end here a little bit. I want to just more succinctly wrap my head around high performance for just really the everyday person.
Mm-hmm.
I think anyone could go back and listen to what we've talked about thus far and go, as an athlete training for the Olympics, this could serve me. As, just someone who's generally active, kind of apply it to sport and to a direct, maybe physical or mental output. But for the everyday non-athletes, how can we apply these principles? Entrepreneurs, creatives, parents, how can anyone apply these chasing mastery?
Yeah. And there is no difference between an Olympic athlete and a parent. There is no difference between a person solving problems at NASA and a person in a classroom. We think that purpose is so outside of ourselves, and it's not. It's how much can I take up this moment, and how am I being masterful with self and in the moment? That's all it is. So all of these practices, like, don't let your ego be like, well, I'm not an Olympic athlete. Well, but you are. You're a person on the path of self-actualization, of self-mastery. And again, back to, you're just choosing to be a parent or to be a teacher or to be whatever. And only an ego would say this purpose isn't as big as someone else's purpose. This is a really good antidote. Sorry, this is going to take us a little.
Sure,
okay, so your purpose is you. And is you being fully in this present moment as your full self. And you being that contributes to the whole, something much greater than you. And your ego is not privy to how it will contribute that way. And there's an example in nature. Nature can teach us everything we know. An oyster, okay? An oyster cleans the entire sea of red tide by spitting. Okay.
What?
Yes. And we can fact check this, but, so its purpose on life is to clean the ocean of red tide. And how it does that is by filtering water in, and then it spits it back out clean.
Can you, what is red tide? What do you mean?
Oh, red tide is when the ocean, I don't know exactly what it is, but it kills everything when you get it in the ocean. And it kills all the marine life and biology around it. And it literally is red and it smells. You've never experienced it.
No, is it like a man-made pollutant getting out in the water, or is it just something that happens in natural situations in nature?
That's a good question. I
immediately thought it was like actual red tide, like detergent getting out in the ocean. I didn't know they made red tide.
No, I think it is maybe naturally occurring. I'm sure humans have added to the destruction of it in some way, shape, or form. But an oyster is keeping from it completely taking over the ocean by spitting. Can you imagine if an oyster had an ego? The oyster would be like, oh no, I can't spit. I'm going to offend Sally. Or no. A dolphin gets to, jump, and a whale gets to blow, and I get to spit. Well, I'm going to spit. It's so stupid. I have no purpose here on life. And, now I'm going to get all depressed and go to McDonald's. Like, can you imagine if an oyster had an ego, and yet by it just doing its job, just by being present and doing and contributing the way that it's designed to contribute, it provides us with all of the biology and healthy marine life in the ocean.
And in that process, is that how the pearl is formed?
I don't know. I'm not an expert. I heard it one time and then I looked it up. So I do know it's true.
Interesting.
But then maybe the good hypothesis. I don't know. We'll have to look it up. But this does clean out the whole entire sea. Okay. So don't let your ego say, okay, I'm not an Olympic athlete. I'm not solving the world's greatest problems. You are. Your entire purpose is to be who and what you came here to be. So whether that's motherhood, classroom, teacher, whatever it is. And so what you want to do is just get crystal clear on what you're here to do and who you're here to serve. And whatever comes to your mind, trust it. And then you want to develop self-mastery. You want to become the type of person that is unoffendable, unirritatable. And then you want to build capacity for failure, which is a sensation, and build capacity for success, which is a sensation. How you do all of that is by that nightly routine that I talked about, is seeing where you serve the small self instead of your fullest potential, feel what you don't want to feel, build capacity.
So you're really saying that in order for us, or how one can become a high performer, all boils down to this one nighttime routine.
I think I do. I mean, it can get more complicated and more nuanced than that. But what I really know is this: your ability to stay present and your ability to actualize is your ability to sit with discomfort. And that discomfort is going to show up in the ways where you chose your small self, because the discomfort arises. And because you don't have capacity for it, you go to the default network. So if in the same situation, the sensation arises, you have capacity for it, you can lead, you can stay in presence.
All right. I definitely think we have to have you back. I have so many other offshoots and ideas where I want to dive into high performance. And I think for me, and hopefully my audience, this is really kind of help wrap our heads around what high performance looks like, feels like. I don't know if I want to say in a totally new way, but I think in a much more feasible way. And I think a more relatable way, because I was somewhat expecting you to come on here and go, you got to train this part of your body, this part of your mind, you got to put in this amount of reps, you got to do all these things. And, all this science leading us into how you actually, push past human limits, when in fact, we're talking about regulating your nervous system and becoming a more present human being. And with that,
great summary.
Now
we are done.
This is definitely going to help me move forward in my life, and has been a great addition to how I'm going to live collectively a life ever forward. But I always ask my guests those two words. What do they mean to you? To kind of take our conversation, to take your work and your approach to life and high performance through the lens of living a life ever forward. What does that mean to you?
What else are we going to do? And always when my clients come to me and they come to me with a devastating failure and they're just like, there's no way I can come back from this, and I'm devastated and all this. And, of course, as I sit with them in that and help them integrate that emotional stuff, then I'm like, what else are you going to do with your time? You can sit here and you can dwell and you can be a victim, or you can ever forward, because what else are we going to do?
I love it. There's never a right or a wrong answer. I loved it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, Natalie, I'm going to have all of your information and your work down in the show notes, the episode resources and the podcast show notes. And if you're watching here on YouTube, under the video description. But where can they go to connect with you, learn more about your work, and maybe even, become a high performer with you?
Yeah. So my website is nataliehummelcoaching.com. And it's actually a really good time to go over there. I also have a peak performance protocol on there, audio that you can download, that you can that will get your nervous system. It'll guide you through feeling what you don't want to feel, and then a short visualization of how you want to show up before you go into the bedroom, the boardroom, business, whatever it is that you're doing. And so those are both my website, and then that free resource would be an incredible start. And then I also have a year-long program called the Limitless Academy, where the first half is self-mastery, which is where we get masterful at nervous system mastery, ego mastery, and emotional mastery. And then from this place of self-mastery, then we start to look at, okay, what does performance mastery mean? And I've made it go down into this pyramid where it has to start with clarity, and then self-mastery, and then you have to have capacity for failure, capacity for success. Then you need to be able to create that pure performance zone that I spoke about, which means performing from unattachment, from wholeness. And then we also have tools that help your nervous system get used to sympathetic energy so that you're more likely to go into flow state. So this is a year-long program just for anyone really looking to actualize their full potential to become a high performer. That's Limitless Academy, and we start in January for the year.
Amazing. Okay, well, you all heard it here. Go check it out. I cannot wait to dive into it more myself. And we got to get you back. Got to get you back. This was so much fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.